Hello friends, thread warlocks, and fellow stitch witches, and welcome to my first sewing vlog. In this video, I will be making Sakura's Remembrance dress from Cardcaptor Sakura. This was one of my quarantine projects a couple months back, and I was lucky to have all the materials on hand to make it, so I'm excited to show you some highlighted progress here in this making. First, I started with a breakdown of the costume. I would sketch out the complete outfit and its component along with construction notes, detailing, and fabric swatches. I usually do this for every costume and commission I make, so it became a habit, and it's one of the ways I keep my work in progress organized. The breakdown of this costume consists of the main dress, outer skirt, underskirt, which also serve as the petticoat, collar piece, a hat, and some accessories such as the brooch and, of course, my favorite, the bows. After getting all my fabrics washed and ironed, I began making a mock-up of the main dress. The top bodice was a similar style to a previous costume I've draped, so I used that as my reference and moved the darts and pleats around. After that, I transferred the mock-up and finalized everything onto a paper pattern and started cutting out the main fabrics. With the seam allowance, darts, and pleats all added in, I began cutting out the pieces. For the main dress, I have a cotton poly for the outer fabric and cotton lining for the inside, which also serve as the underlining. Underlining is used to add it for more body or opacity. It's a separate layer attached to the corresponding garment fabric section on the wrong side and then treated as one during construction. So basically, you're layering it. The outer fabric isn't really my favorite type for many reasons, but it was something I had in my stash probably for centuries now, and it was time to put it to use. Before sewing, I pinned all the pleats and darts in place. The markings I'd done on the fabric were all heat erasable pen. I used those to mark my darts, pleats, and pinpointing parts. After the bodice, I worked on cutting out the sleeves. For my puff sleeve, I added interfacing for a stiffer structure in order to maintain its shape, so it's not a sad, deflated arm balloon floaties. Then I started sewing the bodice. I started with top stitching the pleats since I wanted them to stay nice and flat down. I base stitched the fabrics all around in order to keep the layers together before sewing all the main parts. For the sleeves, I sewed 2 rows of the longest basting stitch, which I then pulled together to form the gathering bunch on it. I do this for both the cap and the bottom of the sleeves. The sleeve is then gathered and added on the sleeve armband. I usually like to finish off the inside with hand sewing just because it's cleaner and it gives that satisfying results I crave for. Then it was onto the skirt, which I did a full circle skirt for. I ended up missing some footage for the skirt portion, but have some sewing ASMR of me sewing the skirt together. It's just music to your ears. The skirt is also underlined and sewn onto a waistband, which will then be attached onto the main bodice of the dress. After sewing the entire dress, I needed to add on the closure. For this part, I used plastic snaps. The reason why I went with snaps was because in one of the reference picture, it indicated that the bag had some sort of buttons or snap closure. Worked out for me since I didn't have the zipper in this color at the time. I think there was a total of 30 snaps I applied on total. I also added interfacing inside the area where the snaps are as stabilizer so it wouldn't pucker the fabric. Next up is the outer skirt. I made a pleated waistband out of this brown mystery fabric I also had for ages. It seemed to be some type of silk. It rips right across the grain line perfectly, but it's also pretty delicate and can be torn like paper if too much pressure is applied. After being lined, the red outer skirt was sewn onto the brown waistband. I forgot to mention earlier about the circle skirt, but don't forget to hang your circle skirt for a day or so. Since they are cut on the bias, the hem tends to stretch unevenly after a while, and so hanging them basically pre-stretches them out so you can see the uneven hem and you can just trim and even them away. I find this part really important because when you're lining them, you don't want the lining on the inside to stretch and be longer than your actual outer skirt, especially after everything's already sewn together. For the bows on the front side, I also made it detachable with snaps for easy access to take on and off. The hat was modified from a sun hat I bought from a thrift store last year. The hat also had a big bow on the back, which I absolutely love. The bigger, the better. There are 2 bows in total, one for the hat and one for the front of the waistskirt. Here we have the finished hat. I added a couple flowers on it just for that spring touch since I had leftovers from another previous Sakura project. For the collar piece, I patterned out the shape on the mannequin. This gives me a better idea on how wide I want it to be and where it should sit. I used saran wrap and duct tape as the base for my mannequin. I drew out the pattern and shape and then cut it out and transfer them onto paper for the patterns. I drew the outline of the collar onto the wrong side of the fabric, which I use as a guide to sew. After sewing all the points, I flipped it inside out through the neck opening, which is where I'll be adding the upper collar and hooks and eyes for the closure. The collar is really cute and making it detachable is definitely easier to take on and off. Time for the fun part, at least for me. The underskirt, which is also a petticoat for this dress. The petticoat was a tulle skirt I made from another previous Sakura costume that I'm planning to remake, so I took that and reused it for this outfit. I added a cotton layer to the outside for the skirt and cut strips of cotton fabric in order to gather them and make ruffles for the bottom hem. Just a lot of time gathering, but I don't mind it. I honestly find it quite therapeutic. And here we have the underskirt / petticoat of the dress. It was 2 layers of tulle underneath, which will serve as the support for the main dress and the skirt outside. The finishing touch to this outfit is the brooch. I actually picked up resin casting just because of this, but now I have an excuse to use it for future projects. I didn't add enough color to this one, so I ended up having to spray them a little darker because they were initially more on the transparent side and I want it to be of a solid color. And now, time to put everything together for the final look. First, you have the underskirt / petticoat. Next is the main outer dress. The outer waistskirt, collar pieces, and brooch accessories. And the hat to complete the finishing look. This is one of my favorite outfits of hers from the original series and I'm so happy I was able to make it. I don't know when I'll be able to wear it, but I can't wait to take her out. I would love to take photos of her in the garden or something. Maybe I'll take her out and just do a little lookbook with her. I also have other Sakura outfits I made before this and they're all basically in the same boat. If you like this video, please give it a like and subscribe if you want to see more of my stitch crafting and sewing journey. This is my first sewing vlog I put together and all the support would be immensely appreciated. Thank you so much and I'll see you all in the next video. Treat your needles and thread like they're your wine and bread, and happy crafting! Bye!